Hi there, welcome Rumor Spill. When Yo Gotti's mother spoke those words, she had no idea that her oldest child would one day be taken from this world in a sad manner. She had no idea that her son would be tragically taken from this world. Anthony Mims, also known as Big, is said to have been the one who fell, according to the word on the street, which is supported by at least 5 people who are within the police department. Yo Gotti did something that everyone was taken aback by, and it was done in the shadow of such a heartbreaking loss. At 42 Doug's Detroit comeback gig, he confronted the gang situation head-on, placing himself in the spotlight for the first time. It is anticipated that this piece will reveal the stunning essence of his statement as well as the potential rippling effects that it may have on the streets. During the performance at 42 Doug's, which took place just a few weeks after Big Juck's life was cut short on the chilly day of January 13, 2024, the atmosphere was electric. Big Juck and his family had been in Memphis to pay their respects at the funeral of an uncle. Little did they realize that tragedy would strike once more just a few hours later, right outside of a Memphis cafe. As a result of the news, shockwaves were thrown across the neighborhood, leaving an unmistakable legacy of suffering. Big Juck, who was 47 years old at the time, suffered a tragic end, suffering from wounds that were too severe to overcome. Just as Yo Gotti was on the verge of becoming a rising sensation with the world at his feet, he was abruptly engulfed in a mystery concerning the death of his own brother. Which aspect of the investigation is the primary focus? The car that is believed to be the getaway vehicle is a white Ford Explorer. Yo Gotti, who was in a state of mourning but was aware of the huge platform he owned, battled with an incomprehensible loss as the investigation progressed further to uncover more information. Yo Gotti made the decision to return to the public eye with the intention of delivering a dose of reality to members of the gang. He took this step with the intention of making a difference. The stage at 42 Doug's concert served as the ideal setting for his return, and when he emerged, the crowd went absolutely wild. Their excitement was palpable, and they had not anticipated Yo Gotti's performance in the midst of his recent personal tragedy. But Yo Gotti had a message to convey, and it was one that would reverberate throughout the venue: we don't fold, we don't bend, and we don't tell. These statements, which may have been a part of his act, continue to linger with the audience, which has led to speculation that he was directly challenging those who were responsible for the killing of his brother, demonstrating a courageous attitude against any threats. Yo Gotti then proceeded to perform his smash tune Foo, which captivated the audience with lyrics that carried a powerful punch after making this audacious claim. A deeper element was added to his performance, which may have been intended to convey a message to those who were involved in the tragic end of his brother's life. His voice, which demanded attention, reverberated throughout the arena. Each verse was a demonstration of the human toll that gang violence exacts on individuals, and he urged those who were involved in it to reevaluate their choices and the influence that their actions had on the communities in which they lived. Yo Gotti came face to face with the brutal reality of gang violence during a performance that he shared with 42 Doug. Although the recent tragedy was not discussed, the performance was a powerful demonstration of Gotti's resiliency and dedication to bringing about change. It was a momentous occasion on which Gotti confronted the harsh realities of gang violence. At the conclusion of the performance, the audience gave Yo Gotti a standing ovation, which was more than just applause. It was an acknowledgement of the impact that he had made, which was to plant the seeds of transformation in the hearts of many people. The task was now in front of the members of the gang, and they were left to consider what their next step would be. Even when the last notes of Yo Gotti's performance faded away, the audience was left with an impression that will not soon be forgotten due to the intensity of his presence. His remarks, which took on added poignancy in light of his brother's recent passing, reflected the collective suffering of families who had experienced senseless murder. He made it abundantly clear to the members of the gang that they should take an alternative course of action and end the cycle of violence that causes ongoing agony. Community leaders and the general public were inspired to create anti-violence campaigns and outreach programs as a result of this call to action and the profound impact that his brother's murder had on them. These initiatives offered alternatives to participation in gangs. The remarks made by Yo Gotti became the impetus for a movement that spread throughout the city, with individuals coming together in a concerted effort to make communities safer. Yo Gotti's admirers and followers rushed to various social media platforms to express their condolences and share their thoughts on the profound message that he conveyed. The general view was unequivocal: the violence that was afflicting the rap scene and communities needed to come to an end, and Yo Gotti's stance was a ray of hope for altering the situation. The devastating news that Big Juck had been shot outside of a restaurant in Memphis sent shockwaves through the music business and marked the beginning of a new year filled with tragedy. Anthony Mims, also known as Big Juck, was involved in the incident that took place on a Saturday afternoon. The neighborhood was left in a state of amazement and raised concerns regarding the safety of the town. In this part, the tragic events of Anthony Mims' death, the mass anguish that followed his passing, and the indelible mark that it left on Yo Gotti are discussed in depth. The news that Gotti's brother had passed away outside of the Hickory Hill Event Center was confirmed by people close to the Gotti family. This news sent shockwaves across the local community.
During the time that the city was dealing with the aftermath of the targeted attack that occurred close to the Piran restaurant, the swift response from law enforcement presented a scenario that displayed chaos. They discovered two people who had been shot. One of them was Big Juke. When they arrived at the scene, due to the fact that they rushed to the hospital, they were informed that they had passed away, which caused waves of shock and dismay to spread throughout the neighborhood. The fact that the second victim, who was fighting for their life, was evacuated for additional medical attention demonstrates how serious the tragedy was. As the authorities put together the tragic events, the community lamented the death of a figure who was deeply ingrained in the fabric of Memphis and the music industry. The crime site was roped off, and an investigation was still underway. Yo Gotti, whose birth name was Mario Cecil Gaiden Mims, had risen to popularity in the rap business, garnering praise and nominations along the way with his rise to prominence. However, beyond the bright sheen of his work, he was suddenly confronted with the gloomy reality of losing a sibling to the violence that looms over their world. This is a significant turning point in Yo Gotti's life and career because it highlights the tremendous closeness that exists between siblings, particularly in the face of such a tragedy. The death of Big Juke has repercussions that extend beyond the realm of personal sorrow. It serves as a sobering reminder of the violence that is pervasive throughout communities and the music business.
While the inquiry is still ongoing, the community and industry insiders are mourning the loss and looking for answers. The clamor for justice is growing stronger as the investigation proceeds. The impact that Big Juck's life had on others and the gap that his loss leaves behind are shown by the messages of condolence that have been posted on social media networks by his fellow musicians and admirers. Through this collaborative act of grief, the necessity of a unified front against the violence that takes the lives of far too many people inside the rap community and beyond is brought to light. When we take into account the tragic deaths of Big Juck and Young Dolph, it is clear that their violent legacies highlight the need for a critical examination of the industry as well as the societal issues that contribute to the occurrence of such outcomes. Their passing serves as a jarring reminder of the difficulties that musicians must contend with, which has prompted a renewed emphasis on the creation of a more secure and welcoming environment within the realm of music. There is a complicated terrain that requires attention and action, and the trajectory of rap music, from its beginnings as a voice for underrepresented people to its current struggle with violence, reflects this complexity. In the rap industry, we can remember the memory of those who have passed away and paved the path for a brighter and more secure future by addressing the underlying causes of violence, advocating positive change, and cultivating a culture of collaboration and support. The terrible death of Big Juck caused a ripple of change to flow through the streets of Memphis and beyond. This transformation quickly spread across the city. Yo Gotti's fervent cry for help at the age of 42, the performance that Doug gave, was not merely a moment of catharsis, rather, it was a siren call for action against the cycle of violence that had claimed the life of his brother and threatened the lives of a greater number of people in the community. A movement was sparked as a result of the power of his comments, which was compounded by the raw emotion of his loss. This movement brought together community leaders, local organizations, and concerned citizens in order to confront the plague of gang violence. Fans and watchers alike pondered the implications of Yo Gotti's message, and social media platforms became places for conversation and thought as a result of this. His call to reject the road of violence and retaliation struck a chord with many people, which sparked conversations about the role that music and artists have in molding perceptions and influencing behavior. Yo Gotti and his family suffered a profound personal loss as a result of the tragic murder of Big Juck. However, the tragedy also served as a strong narrative that highlighted the urgent need for reform within the rap culture and society as a whole. It was also the case that the music industry found itself at a crossroads. It was the death of Big Juck, which came on the heels of other high-profile catastrophes, that brought to light the hazardous convergence of fame, rivalry, and violence that had become all too typical in rap culture. As time went on, artists, producers, and executives started to examine the ways in which they had contributed to the perpetuation of a society that, at times, encouraged conflict and confrontation. The understanding that change was necessary generated conversations about the ways in which the business could better safeguard its artists and contribute to a future that is more positive and sustainable. With projects targeted at providing young musicians with alternatives to gang involvement and conflict, efforts to address the core causes of violence in the rap culture gained steam. These initiatives helped to address the root causes of violence. The next generation of artists was intended to be equipped with the skills and information necessary to handle the problems that the profession presents without succumbing to its more negative aspects through the implementation of mentorship programs, educational opportunities, and community engagement initiatives. Despite the fact that these initiatives are still in their early stages, they provided a reassuring indication that Big Juck and other people who lost their lives as a result of violence might serve as inspiration for new directions. However, the difficulties continue to be severe. Despite the fact that it is associated with roughness and street credibility, the appeal of the gangsta identity continues to exercise a significant influence on emerging artists as well as fans. To combat this, not only is it necessary to make structural changes inside the industry, but it is also necessary for there to be a shift in the attitudes that society has toward violence and masculinity. In order to move away from negative stereotypes and toward a more inclusive and positive representation of hip-hop culture, it is imperative that a concerted effort be made to redefine what success and authenticity look like in the world of rap music. During this time when Yo Gotti and the rap community are struggling to come to terms with these concerns, the legacy of Big Juck and the circumstances surrounding his passing serve as a powerful reminder of the stakes involved. An outpouring of support and activity in the wake of a tragedy gives a glimpse of optimism, despite the fact that the path toward a safer and more responsible rap industry is laden with barriers. It is possible for the rap community to start the process of healing and transforming if it comes together to confront the fundamental problems that contribute to violence and if it offers support to artists who utilize their platforms to promote positive change. A much-needed discourse about violence in the rap industry and the broader societal issues that lead to it has been sparked as a result of the death of Big Juck and the subsequent call to action that has followed. Despite the fact that the path that lies ahead is difficult, the legacy of those who have been lost to violence has the potential to act as a catalyst for change, motivating musicians, fans, and industry leaders alike to work toward a future in which music is a force that brings people together rather than causing them to be divided. In this sense, the terrible loss of one person can mark the beginning of a brand new chapter for the rap community, one that is defined by hope, resiliency, and a steadfast dedication to peace and justice. This new chapter can be distinguished by both of these qualities. Subscribe Rumor Spill for more videos.